Hello, my name is Jeff Beaudry and I'm an Associate Professor in the Education Leadership Department here at the University of Southern Maine.
And I'm Anita Stewart McCafferty, an Assistant Professor in Educational Leadership at University of Southern Maine.
And we'd like to present in this video Jan Chappuis, who has been an associate with the Assessment Training Institute, a longtime teacher with wonderful experience in the classroom, as well as leadership positions as a curriculum coordinator and other leadership positions. And most recently, and what we're really trying to take great pride in presenting, is her being an author of some wonderful books. The Castle book, which is the Classroom Assessment for Student Learning, Doing It Right, Using It Well, which is now in its second edition. She's a lead author on that. And the other one, which is really the heart of teaching practice right now, is the 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning, which is in its second edition. And she's the sole author on that one. Hello, this is Jeff Beaudry. And in this video presentation, Jan Chappuis takes us through the 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning. Those are all organized under the 3 driving questions. Where am I going? Where am I now? And how can I close the gap?
So 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning are structured around 3 key questions intended to gain the maximum learning out of our assessment practices. For the first category, where am I going, we have 2 strategies. And those, if we could advance the slide, those 2 strategies are to make sure students understand what the learning is and to use examples and models, both of strong and weak work, to help students get a clearer vision of what excellence looks like and doesn't look like. When teachers use these 2 strategies in advance of offering feedback or having students self-assess, they discover that student work comes in at a higher level of quality right from the get-go. And then we move to where am I now, and we have 2 strategies for that. The first one is offering regular descriptive feedback during the learning. And that one really hinges on having students understand the learning. A lot of the research on the effectiveness of feedback points to when feedback isn't effective, it actually harms learning. And one of the foundations for effective feedback is that students understand the intended learning. Without that, feedback does not help move them forward. And the second, or the 4th strategy, second in where am I now, is to have students self-assess and set goals for next steps. And in this strategy, we actually ask students to do what we've just done with descriptive feedback. With our feedback, we've said, here's what's working, here's what's next. And we want students to be able to do that too. So we model self-assessment and goal setting through our descriptive feedback, and then we turn that over to students because we don't want to be their feedback givers for life. We need them to develop that capability in order to be self-reflective, self-reliant, self-regulating learners. Now these four strategies are sequential. Strategy 4 is a destination, and strategies 1 through 3 are enablers. We teach students with strategies 1 through 3 in order to prepare them to self-assess. When we look at the last category, how can I close the gap? We are really looking at 3 strategies that are what I call floaters. And that means that they can be used any time. You don't need to wait until you finish strategy 4 in order to begin strategy 5. Strategies 5 and 6 ask us to look at what students have done after they have done some work, determine what the learning needs are, and then teach to them with a number of different strategies, one of which might be to reteach, another might be to offer feedback, another, if students are ready, might be to ask them to look at their own work and decide what needs to happen. So we diagnose followed by action, and that's strategies 5 and 6. And then strategy 7 asks us to engage students in tracking, paying attention to their own growth, reflecting on how far they've come. I have become better at math this year. I used to, but now I have become a better writer this year. I have become a better reader this year. Here are the things I learned from doing this project. Here's what I didn't know at the beginning. Here's what I know now. Highly motivational, and also a great contributor to moving short-term memory information into the long-term memory. And then the last thing we ask them to do is, once they've tracked and reflected on their learning progress, to give them the opportunity to share them, to celebrate. So those are the 7 strategies of assessment for learning, and they are intended to capture the effective use side, the formative components of the effective use side. And you can see the 3 high-impact formative assessment practices embedded here in strategies 3, 4, and then 5 and 6. So, if we're going to develop a culture of assessment in support of learning in our classrooms, we need both do it right, which is clear purpose plus clear targets plus sound design, and use it well. And that is, we need to make sure that our summative grading practices are in good shape, but also that our formative assessment practices, including involving the student in formative assessment, are in place. And that's what the 2 books, Classroom Assessment for Student Learning and 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning, are designed to support. So we encourage people to think about those 2 books as their key texts in helping people helping teachers look at, what do I know, what am I good at, and what are my next steps in learning to make sure that I have a culture of assessment in support of learning in my classroom.